Hey, you guys, I hope you were able to answer those questions about chapter 1, some of the things about what caves have in common and how the animals are adapting. So before we get into chapter 2, I want to give you some guided questions as well so you can know what to listen for as we read and what keywords to look for in the text as well. So I want you to think, you've already looked at some adaptations that these animals have made. So I want you to continue to see how have the animals adapted in these pitch black conditions. So what specifically do the animals do who aren't able to see because it's so dark inside the caves? What adaptations are there? And then I want you to tell me, why is it difficult for scientists to explore the caves and where these creatures or these cave dwellers have been found? So why is that something that's difficult for scientists? So I'm going to go ahead and begin to read chapter 2 of our text. And I want you just to follow along. Chapter 2 is titled Dark and Surprising Places. So remember, one of our questions was how have animals adapted to these pitch black environments? Okay? Dark and surprising places. Imagine if you were transported deep underground into the heart of a cave, the dark zone. Here there is no light or wind and no plants grow. What would it take to live here? Life in the dark zone. Keep a lookout for those headings. We see lots of pictures. Remember, our expository text is going to have all of that factual information in there for us. Animals that live permanently in this dark zone are called troglobites or cave dwellers. They have adaptations, keyword, such as small bodies, long limbs, long antennae. Other adaptations are less obvious, such as the ability to detect small vibrations or smells. Their adaptations help these creatures to move, forage, and feed efficiently in a pitch black environment where food is scarce. So in other words, these adaptations that they've made help them survive and live and eat in these really difficult environments. Many troglobites do not have the same adaptations that animals above ground need to survive. If you live your whole life in the dark, then eyes are not very useful. Animals living in the dark zone typically have tiny eyes or none at all. In the outside world, most animals have coloring in their skin called pigment. Pigment is an adaptation that protects animals from the sun or provides them with camouflage. However, pigment is of no use in the dark zone of a cave. As a result, some troglobites have skin that is nearly see-through. Animals with these adaptations are well suited to deep cave life. However, they could not survive for long in the world outside. And we see some of these eyeless creatures here. We got these spiders and interesting insects. Okay, we go on. This page is filled with diagrams and pictures. I love that. So here we see the zones of a cave. Okay, and we have where these troglexines that we read about in chapter 1 live. Towards the top, they still see a little bit of that sunlight. And then we got these digoxines that probably live within these puddled up waters in the cave, as you can see. In this medium twilight zone, you see the troglophiles that we read about as well. And now you hear this dark zone, and you can see that this is where all those troglobites live, those ones with no eyes, and they don't need to see because it's so dark. Okay, and I bet we're about to read about some of these aquatic, I tried my best on that word, cave dwellers here. So let's read about that. Creatures that live on land aren't the only cave dwellers. Many caves contain networks of underground streams and ponds with specifically adapted aquatic or water animals living in and around them. Aquatic cave dwellers that can't survive outside the cave environment are called stygobites. Stygobites include blind fish, salamanders without eyes, translucent or see-through, crayfish, and other crustaceans with no pigment or skin color. The water that flows through the underground caves usually enters from outside the cave, then flows back out again. It transports aquatic creatures into and out of the cave. Stygoxines are aquatic visitors from outside. Stogophiles are water lovers that may also spend time outside of the cave environment. We see now our next heading, extreme cave dwellers. Cave creatures have been found in unexpected places. In 2001, tiny stygobites that resembled shrimp were discovered in limestone caves under the Western Australian desert. The caves are difficult to access, so scientists stay above the ground and use fishing rods and nets to scoop up the tiny animals. Remember one of our questions, why is it difficult for scientists to explore these caves and cave dwellers? Some caves provide even more hostile or dangerous conditions. These environments are too cold, too hot, or too toxic for most cave creatures to live in. Yet scientists have found specially adapted microscopic forms of life living there. Animals that are adapted to live in the extreme conditions are called extremophiles. Most animals could not survive in the frigid or cold, freezing conditions in Greenland's ice caves, but scientists have discovered microscopic creatures living there too. These creatures are able to withstand the cave's sub-zero temperatures. Mexico's Cueva de Villa Luz is another extreme cave environment. The cave emits or lets out atoxic gas called hydrogen sulfide. Scientists have given the microbes that live on this poisonous gas names such as snotties, blue goo, and slime balls. Gross. Scientists working here carry meters to monitor the levels of gas inside the cave. And you can see that snotty, slime ball, blue goo that they're talking about right here in these caves here in Mexico, the Cueva de Villa Luz. And you see that bacteria just dripping down off the top of the cave. All right, so we've made it through chapter 2. In conclusion, love that heading, conclusion. We know we're at the end. Cave creatures live in dark underground worlds. Just as we couldn't live for long in their environments, many cave creatures couldn't survive in ours. The adaptations that help them live beneath the ground would make it dangerous for them to live above it. How do we know which features of cave creatures are adaptations? And how do we learn how each adaptation helps a creature to survive? We rely on scientists for answers to these questions. These researchers climb, dive, or squeeze into cold and dark spaces. Then they patiently observe and photograph cave creatures to learn more about them. Creatures living in the deepest parts of caves can't easily travel to another cave. So scientists have discovered some unique and rare species. Scientists sometimes bring organisms to the surface. The scientists mimic a cave's conditions or copy their conditions in their laboratories and examine these microscopic organisms in detail. Scientists have found an amazing range of creatures in caves around the world. There is still a lot that we don't understand about them and the way they live. For anyone interested in exploring underground, there are many things left to discover about life in caves. Wow, that was great. I really enjoyed that. And I hope that you guys are going to be able to answer those questions on the quiz. Remember to contact me if you need any help, and have a great day.